raping his sister-in-law, executing a 7-month-old baby, forcing his uncle to drink urine, and having sex with his wife in public. These things just sound unbelievable. But in the winter of 1980 in the Dam Mountain area, these things actually happened to a local emperor. The name of this local emperor was Zhu Shiqiang. That year, Zhu Shiqiang was just 34 years old. Before becoming the so-called emperor, he was just an ordinary farmer. Zhu Shiqiang's hometown is Damya Commune, Yingshan County, Nancheng, Sichuan. This place has now become Damya Township. In 1960, 14-year-old Zhu Shiqiang moved with his parents to Longtan Commune in De County. Now De County has become Dazhou. Although he is from a peasant family, Zhu Shiqiang's conditions are actually pretty good. Because he went to elementary school, is literate, and knows some knowledge. With his level of education and conditions in the Daba mountain area at that time, he was actually considered a small intellectual. After all, in the environment like that at that time, the vast majority were illiterate, and the residents in the mountain villages were basically uncivilized, poorly informed, and feudal and backward. But Zhu Shiqiang did not take full advantage of this advantage. Although he went to elementary school, he was still lazy and unwilling to use his strengths. Even when he was farming at home, he spent 3 days fishing and 2 days drying nets. This would definitely not last long. The person who later changed Zhu Shiqiang's destiny was actually his grandfather He Ziming. He Ziming is a quack magician who tells people's fortunes, treats diseases, and provides feng shui all day long. He has been doing this for more than half a century and is well known in the local area. In the previous story, we have mentioned that in that ignorant era, including in some remote and backward areas in modern times, people had not yet emerged from feudal superstition. At this stage, witchcraft and medical skills are often inseparable. If someone in the family is sick and cannot afford a doctor, he or she will seek help from a wizard. If something strange happens to the family and it is haunted, he or she will seek help from a wizard. As a result, charlatans like He Ziming became popular. As a result, he earned a lot of money and his family conditions were slightly better. So thanks to good family conditions, Zhu Shiqiang found a beautiful wife. At that time, the teen belle was named Ma Jingsui. After getting married, the family's expenses increased, and Zhu Shiqiang suffered from a lack of ways to make money. This reminded him of his grandfather He Ziming. So starting in 1971, he began to learn some charlatanism from He Ziming, and followed his grandfather to do fortune-telling every day. After living like this for 3 years, He Ziming died of illness in 1974. Ironically, even though He Ziming claimed that he knew many kinds of magic and medical skills, he failed to save his own life. After He Ziming passed away, Zhu Shiqiang naturally inherited his mantle and continued to go around the streets and cheat to make money. Of course, not all of their so-called spells are 100% deceptive. As for He Ziming, the reason why he has been able to work in this industry for 50 or 60 years is because he does have some real abilities. He does know some real medical skills and can see some diseases. And later, he handed over all these skills to Zhu Shiqiang. In addition, Zhu Shiqiang already had a certain level of culture, and the combination of the two made those charlatanisms more credible. From 1974 to 1980, using these skills, Zhu Shiqiang treated people every day, exorcised evil spirits, transformed talismans, and summoned spirits. He earned hundreds of dollars in some mountain villages around Daxian County, and also collected hundreds of thousands of dollars. Less courtesy. Everyone has a high degree of recognition for him, and they are willing to come to him if something happens to their family. Don't underestimate these few hundred yuan. Now, it's almost equivalent to tens of thousands of yuan. Let's not talk about how he earned this money. At least he had this money at that time, and the conditions were pretty good. Moreover, Zhu Shiqiang's wife Ma Jingsui is a traditional woman who strictly abides by the rules of husband and wife and obeys Zhu Shiqiang's words. Judging from an isolated environment like a small mountain village, this kind of life is actually pretty good. So why did Zhu Shiqiang later become emperor? This starts with his second sister-in-law. The second sister-in-law, like Zhu Shiqiang, also learned some charlatanism from He Ziming before. However, the second sister-in-law entered the industry earlier and is considered Zhu Shiqiang's senior sister. Later, Zhu Shiqiang became bigger and stronger, and the second sister-in-law looked jealous. One day I found Zhu Shiqiang and said, "Shiqiang, when it comes to academics, I am ahead of you, and the first is greater. According to the second sister-in-law's wishes, when I make money in the future, I have to withdraw 3 cents from every dollar. Give the 3rd cent share to the second sister-in-law. This is equivalent to directly asking for 1/3 of the income." Zhu Shiqiang was naturally unwilling. But as for Zhu Shiqiang, he is also relatively feudal and ignorant. After all, the second sister-in-law, as her senior sister, does have the right to collect a share according to the rules of their industry. So Zhu Shiqiang had to agree. But later, as time passed, Zhu Shiqiang's income visibly dropped because he had to hand over a huge share of the share, which made him very angry. However, he dared not speak out in anger. One night, Zhu Shiqiang said to himself angrily at home, "Isn't she just a stinky woman? Why can she be an adult but I can't be an adult? I guess she should be the biggest adult in the world. I used to find someone to figure it out. I am destined to be rich and noble. Someone should kneel down for me. I should eat chicken, duck, and fish every day. I should be rich. I should have more women besides my wife. I should have clothes. Come and stretch out your hands and open your mouth." After having this idea, Zhu Shiqiang decided to perform a big drama. On the morning of November 22, 1980, before dawn, Zhu Shiqiang went out to the market to tell fortunes. But the strange thing is that until 3 o'clock in the morning, he still did not come back. Just when his wife Ma Jingsui was confused, Zhu Shiqiang's sister rushed over and said that his brother Zhu Shiqiang suddenly went crazy, singing and dancing, and couldn't stop at all. Upon hearing this, Ma Jingsui was very worried and quickly found the second sister-in-law, because Zhu Shiqiang and the second sister-in-law chatted for a long time last night. Maybe the second sister-in-law knew what was going on. As soon as the second sister-in-law heard this, she gave Ma Jingsui an idea, asking her to go to Zhu Shiqiang quickly, slap Zhu Shiqiang on the forehead 3 times, and call Sir 3 times, and Zhu Shiqiang would return to normal. At this time, Zhu Shiqiang was at Ma Jingsui's uncle's house. It is said that Zhu Shiqiang was asked to come and take a look because his uncle's house was a little unclean recently. But he didn't expect that Zhu Shiqiang suddenly started dancing, singing and dancing as he watched. He didn't respond when he was called, and he looked like he was crazy. That's why we sent people to find Ma Jingsui. When Ma Jingsui arrived, Zhu Shiqiang must have been tired from dancing and fell on the bed with his eyes closed. Ma Jingsui walked over, shouted several times, and patted several times, but Zhu Shiqiang did not respond and seemed to have passed out. At this time, Ma Jingsui thought of the method that her second sister-in-law gave her. She immediately came over and gently patted Zhu Shiqiang's forehead 3 times, and then called Sir 3 times. Sure enough, Zhu Shiqiang slowly opened his eyes and asked slowly, "What's going on?" Ma Jingsui didn't know what kind of medicine Zhu Shiqiang was selling. She really thought Zhu Shiqiang was sick, so she asked with great concern, "What's wrong with you? Do you want to call a doctor?" After hearing this, Zhu Shiqiang became angry, replied angrily, "Hey, go see a doctor, go and boil some eggs for me." As for Zhu Shiqiang, the reason why he was able to become the so-called emperor was later jokingly said that he was the emperor in exchange for 20 eggs. Why do you say that? Because Zhu Shiqiang is a smart man, he knows how to grasp the psychology of the villagers. First of all, he knew that what the villagers needed were tangible benefits. Secondly, he also knew that the villagers were almost all illiterate and had no concept of science, and they still believed in the ghosts and gods. Once these 2 points were combined, Zhu Shiqiang used these boiled eggs to perform a play in front of everyone. He asked his wife to call all the neighbors, claiming that the Jade Emperor had just given him a dream and asked him to be the emperor. He also distributed the 20 eggs cooked by Ma Jingsui to the crowd, saying that these eggs were the dragons who had ascended the throne. Eggs, if you eat them, you will be blessed for 100 years. In the Daba mountain area at that time, everyone was very poor, and it was difficult to solve the problem of food and clothing. Eggs could be said to be a luxury product. Although every household raises chickens, they are reluctant to eat eggs and sell them to make money. Zhu Shiqiang suddenly became so generous and shared eggs with everyone, so naturally he didn't eat for free. Some villagers with relatively simple ideas really believed it, thinking that since Zhu Shiqiang could treat everyone to eat so many eggs, maybe he really wanted to be the emperor, and he was opening a warehouse to stock up on food. Of course, there are also some more rational villagers. Although they don't really believe Zhu Shiqiang's words, it is still great to eat an egg for free. They were happy to stay and see what kind of medicine Zhu Shiqiang was selling in this gourd. Regardless of the situation, Zhu Shiqiang's goal was actually achieved. 24 people gathered in the room to hear him speak. Zhu Shiqiang sat upright on the bed and claimed that the Jade Emperor had just warned him in his dream that he should become an emperor and benefit the people. Why? The Jade Emperor said that now that the regime has collapsed, only you, Zhu Shiqiang, have the position of emperor. You should go to Beijing to ascend the throne, change the dynasty, and unify the world. All in all, they are all reactionary remarks. While talking, Zhu Shiqiang started dancing again and chanting some spells. After dancing for a while, he mysteriously expressed that the Jade Emperor had just revealed some secrets to him, saying that there would be a great disaster starting this winter, and that the mountains would collapse and the earth would be leveled. I am now the emperor appointed by the Jade Emperor. Those who are loyal to me and kneel to me can avoid disasters and enjoy the emperor's favor. After all, it was in a mountain village area. The feudal ideas of the villagers were deeply rooted. In addition, everyone was farmers, and what they feared most were natural disasters such as floods and droughts. So when they heard this, 7 or 8 villagers were immediately frightened. They quickly knelt down and asked Zhu Shiqiang to protect them. As for those villagers who didn't believe it, they had eaten other people's eggs after all. They were too embarrassed to meddle in other people's business and did not report Zhu Shiqiang. In this way, Zhu Shiqiang won his first batch of believers with 20 eggs in this small room. Those people really regarded him as the emperor and started calling him Long Live. And this absurd story officially kicked off. In the next few days, he relied on his knowledge of charlatanism to promote his identity as emperor and said that the Jade Emperor had ordered that he would ascend the throne in 7 days. He specifically targeted some superstitious old people and tricked them into causing various natural disasters caused by the Jade Emperor. These old people were immediately frightened, and they all knelt down conscientiously and shouted "Long live." After all, the people there are relatively feudal, and they all say that the father is the guide for the son. When people see their elders, they kneel down, and everyone else also kneels down. So slowly, 10, 20 and 30, and eventually more than 80 people came and knelt down in front of him. Although the Jade Emperor asked Zhu Shiqiang to ascend the throne in 7 days, he actually couldn't wait the next day. He was afraid that some villagers would report him to the commune, so the next day, November 23rd, he couldn't wait to ascend the throne. On the day he ascended the throne, he placed a broken chair outside the door with a golden quilt spread on it. He sat on it decently and declared that he had officially ascended the throne and became the emperor. At the same time, he did not forget to continue to promote his fallacies and heresies, saying that if the mountains are to collapse and the ground is to be leveled, I can handle it all as an emperor. After hearing this, the onlookers knelt down and shouted 3 times, hoping to receive the emperor's protection and avoid natural disasters. However, before the emperor could protect these people, Zhu Shiqiang first asked for benefits from the people. He required his subjects to kill a chicken for themselves every day, no matter how they cooked it, but there must be attendants and maids nearby to feed him. After eating and drinking, you have to poop and pee. You must be supported by people to go to the toilet. Some ignorant villagers really obeyed his instructions and did whatever he asked. With everyone taking care of him, Zhu Shiqiang began to think about sleeping. He said that he was guided by the Jade Emperor to marry 48 wives and make them his wives, so that he could enjoy the emperor's favor and enjoy happiness for a lifetime. After saying this, he looked around and selected 4 young girls among his subjects. Regardless of whether they were willing or not, he canonized them as first dash, second dash, third and fourth grade ladies. That night, Zhu Shiqiang couldn't wait to rape the newly consecrated first-class wife Ma Lanhua in front of his wife Ma Jingsui. But this was not enough. The next night, he wanted to play something more fancy, and let 4 ladies of the first, second, third and fourth grades, as well as 5 women including his wife Ma Jingsui, serve him. So all 5 people were ruined by him. What's even more hateful here is that his first-class wife Ma Lanhua was only 16 years old at the time, and this Ma Lanhua was actually the daughter of Zhu Shiqiang's wife Ma Jingsui's uncle, so she was considered his sister-in-law. He doesn't even spare his own relatives, which is really hateful. Then on the 3rd day, seeing his daughter being raped by Zhu Shiqiang for 2 consecutive nights, Ma Jingsui's uncle was very angry and ran to the commune early in the morning to report the crime. Zhu Shiqiang was so frightened that he did not dare to stay in the village anymore. He immediately led the army to fight in person and fled to his father-in-law's house in the next village. At his father-in-law's house, in order to vent his anger at being reported, he started to throw things and hit anyone he saw. He also made an excuse, saying that he was exorcising evil spirits from his father-in-law's house. In this way, he made trouble all morning. By the afternoon of that day, he felt that his father-in-law's house was not safe, so he went to his uncle He Guangfa's house again. In He Guangfa's house, this farce has officially reached its climax. On November 27th, the 6th day after Zhu Shiqiang became emperor, he suddenly began to twitch and dance, claiming that he was possessed by the dead master He Ziming, so now he was possessed by ghosts and gods, and he was the emperor of the Jade Emperor. The emperor must have more people coming to worship him. When Uncle He Guangfa heard this, he believed it even more since he was already very ignorant and superstitious. Because He Ziming was very strict with He Guangfa during his lifetime, He Guangfa was also scared at this time and did not dare to breathe. He would do whatever Zhu Shiqiang said. Zhu Shiqiang drank too much water and wanted to go to the toilet, so he asked 3 men, including his uncle, to help him go to the toilet. After peeing, they were also asked to drink their own urine, euphemistically saying that dragon urine can prolong life. If you were a normal person and asked me to drink urine for no reason, you would definitely have become anxious. But this group of people were so stupid that they actually drank under Zhu Shiqiang's coercion. Making people drink urine was not the end of it. Zhu Shiqiang had an idea and said that he wanted to be yellow. What did he mean? In fact, I just want to do male and female things. But he is the emperor, and he must do something different. In order to show his status as emperor, Zhu Shiqiang and his wife Ma Jingsui began to have sex in the house in front of more than a dozen people, and threatened that being an emperor must be so upright. Listen, is this human language? Is this a personnel matter? I personally think that Zhu Shiqiang might have been a little crazy at that time and had some mental problems. In the evening, he asked his men to buy firecrackers for him. After buying them, they all started crackling. The firing of cannons at night immediately attracted the surrounding neighbors. This Zhu Shiqiang also went crazy alone. When he saw that there were many people, he asked his men to build a small earthen platform for him. He stood on it and shouted loudly, saying that I am the emperor and come to benefit the people. You all have to kneel down for me. Whoever doesn't kneel down, kill without mercy. When his subjects heard this, they all knelt down. Some of the onlookers didn't understand what was going on, but under the intimidation and instigation of other subjects, they also knelt down in confusion. This includes his uncle He Guangfa's daughter named He Bifang. He Bifang originally did not want to kneel, but under the pressure of her father He Guangfa and Zhu Shiqiang, she finally knelt down. At this time, He Bifang was holding her 2-year-old daughter Deng Haining in her arms and carrying her 7-month-old daughter Deng Qiong on her back. These 2 children are still young, and when she kneels there, both adults and children feel uncomfortable. The key moment was when Zhu Shiqiang screamed on the stage, frightening the 2 children and making them cry. It was precisely because the 2 children kept crying that a murder occurred and Zhu Shiqiang himself was completely pushed to a dead end. The 2 children were crying, which made Zhu Shiqiang angry. He said angrily, He Bifang, get these 2 rebel kings out of here, why are you crying here? But this was her own child after all. He Bifang definitely didn't want to, so she just knelt there and didn't move. This made Zhu Shiqiang even more angry. He rushed forward and slapped He Bifang twice on the face. He Bifang had no choice but to stand up and carry the child into the house aggrievedly. But the child was really frightened and kept crying even in the room. Later, he was carried outside the yard, but it was still useless and he kept crying. As for Zhu Shiqiang, he is indeed a weirdo, insisting on competing with 2 children. When he saw that the child was still crying, he became even more angry and ordered He Guangfa, now I order you to immediately throw these 2 rebel kings into the Dongshui fields and execute them. As for He Guangfa, he couldn't figure it out either. People. Because of superstition, he thought that Zhu Shiqiang in front of him was really possessed by his father, He Ziming. But even if it was his father who ordered it, he should not kill these 2 children. After all, these 2 children are his biological grandchildren. How could he do it? But he just did it. He snatched the child from He Bifang and immediately threw it into the paddy field outside. You must know that it was late autumn and the weather was already very cold. 2 children were thrown into the water. Could they not cry? He Bifang was so distressed that she immediately rushed over to fish the child out of the water and put it in her arms. But as for Zhu Shiqiang, he still refused to let the child go. When he saw the child being fished out, he asked He Guangfa to snatch the child away and execute him in public. And this He Guangfa was so stupid that he actually killed his family out of justice, snatched the child away and put it on the ground in the yard. Zhu Shiqiang immediately picked up a hoe and banged the 2 children to death, leaving them bloody. He Bifang cried heartbreakingly, but no one paid attention to her. Even her father He Guangfa showed no sympathy. Instead, he followed Zhu Shiqiang's order and threw the 2 children's bodies into the manure pit again. Later, Zhu Shiqiang felt confused and resentful, so he fished out 2 small corpses and let He Guang burn them out, destroying the corpses and removing traces of them. After a while, the 2 children were burned into black balls of flesh, and He Bifang had already fainted from crying. The whole process was extremely bloody and tragic, but what was puzzling was that during the hour-long violence, no one from the many onlookers stood up to stop it. Finally, a passing primary school student discovered the incident and quickly went to the commune to report the incident. After receiving the report from the primary school students, the village secretary brought several security team members to He Guangfa's home the next day, and subdued the so-called emperor and his men with little effort. He Guangfa was handed over to the police, and Zhu Shiqiang, who had only been emperor for 7 days, was quickly arrested. It is said that when Zhu Shiqiang was arrested, some ignorant villagers felt incredible. They could not figure out that Zhu Shiqiang was not the emperor. How could he arrest the emperor? It was not until a few months later that Zhu Shiqiang was sentenced to death that this group of ignorant people suddenly realized. In the end, Zhu Shiqiang was sentenced to death and deprived of political rights for life because he used feudal superstitious means to rape women, beat people severely, carry out counter-revolutionary propaganda, call himself emperor, and publicly kill 2 people. Zhu Shiqiang's uncle He Guangfa was eventually imprisoned for assisting him in committing crimes and killing 2 innocent children. It is said that in the court, the previously arrogant Zhu Shiqiang was so frightened that he cried on the spot and shouted, "I am guilty, please be lenient to the government, please be lenient to me." He couldn't pull himself up no matter what, which made people laugh and cry. This is the ending of Zhu Shiqiang. We have talked about 2 or 3 incidents similar to Zhu Shiqiang's before, but they are actually much more than what we hear and see. According to relevant records, in the short 17 years from 1976 to 1993, there were hundreds of such incidents of proclaiming emperors in rural areas of my country. These so-called emperors were so bold that they not only held ceremonies and enthroned themselves as emperors, but also appointed officials and nobles, selected concubines, and some even formed armed forces in an attempt to change the dynasty. Of course, no matter how they make trouble, most of these farces are subdued at the grassroots level in rural areas. Even if they are more cheerful, the public security organs will quickly fall apart. In 1998, the book The Essence of Emperor's Dream, compiled by Moxan, detailed 10 incidents of proclaiming emperor. The author summarizes this in the book. Emperors can be roughly classified into 3 categories: illiterate, charlatan, and power-mad. Ignorance produces despotism, and despotism produces tyrants, which are the same through the ages. As long as someone claims to be the true dragon emperor, there will be people who will surrender and be loyal. Some people paid homage to him. About 90% of the cases of emperor proclaiming in contemporary China occur in poor and backward areas. This is a fact that cannot be ignored. It can be said that this description is extremely appropriate and accurate. In fact, there are many similarities between emperor proclaiming events and cult events, and the methods to cure them are generally the same. Only by popularizing scientific knowledge, establishing scientific ideas, mastering scientific methods, and promoting scientific spirit are the fundamental ways to defeat feudal superstition, ignorance and backwardness, and various pseudosciences and cults.